Hi everyone, the following video is the recording from our first artist feedback AMA session focusing on NFT collection descriptions. This session was held in the MetaJungle Discord on May 10th and hosted by talented photographers and writers Dan Hawk and Lauren Thompson. In this session, they reviewed and gave honest feedback on the written element of 10 different NFT collections. And we want to thank Lauren and Dan for their time, as well as all the artists who submitted their work for review and everyone that was able to attend. We look forward to providing more sessions like this in the future, and with that, let's get into it.
So we're a few minutes late, but I'm excited about this one. This is a different time for us doing these things. It's evening here in the United States, which is, we normally do these things kind of morning, mid-afternoon here. So this is kind of different. Lauren, I'm excited to be doing this. I'm glad you could make time to do this. I'm glad we're focusing on this area. This is pretty exciting.
Me too. I'm very excited. Thank you so much for having me on and allowing me to just kind of come in and join in. And hopefully maybe for future ones we can do in the middle of the day. This week was just kind of crazy for me. I started a new job, so evenings were just a little bit better.
No, that's totally fine.
I know that mornings, kind of that lunch hour is usually better for our audience, for people in the States, and then also, everyone around the world too, with all the differing time zones.
Well, and now might be a really great time for some people and we haven't even tried yet, so that'll be great. Well, I think first of all, it'd be great to just kind of walk through. I know we don't have a big audience here, and that doesn't surprise me. We didn't even announce who we were going to be reviewing until later. So, Lauren, it'll be up to you and I to pump out when the recording is live. We'll just make sure we spam everybody with it, so they know that it's out there and everybody can come listen.
Sounds good.
So I will just say right off the bat that we had a bunch of submissions. In order to just be able to have time to go through these, we had a little bit, we trimmed it down to a handful, and this will be a little bit different than our other AMA feedback sessions because we're focusing not on just the entire collection, but we're focusing on the descriptions this time and really working through what is the text, what is the copy, what are we including in not only the overall collection description, but also what's happening on the individual pieces as well. And so we'll probably do a sampling and look at a few pieces. But let's just, first of all, for anybody here who doesn't know Lauren, I will just say that her work is amazing. She has some really, really gorgeous photography, kind of focused on the stuff that I have found most impressive is your sense of texture and tonality. So happy to have you here in the group. We've reviewed you in an AMA before, so it's kind of fun to get you to get your feedback for other people now too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate that. And I'm excited to be able to review descriptions for everyone because I don't know if many people know this, but I'm a writer and a communicator by trade, and writing descriptions and compelling stories is just what I've been doing my whole life. So I'm excited just to be able to review other people's work and hopefully offer up some good advice for the future.
Well, that's perfect. Well, why don't we, if you don't mind just kind of kicking us off, I put them in order. They're kind of a reverse order from our list. So starting over on this side. But sure. I would love it if you would just kind of kick us off and just talk about this. Let's just dive in on this first one, City Diary. And this one is by Haluk, is the artist.
Yes, so this was actually the first collection that I looked at, and right off the bat, I think what I would have liked to seen is more detail in the description here. So the whole collection description reads, "Welcome to the home of City Diary on OpenSea. Discover the best items in this collection." And I think it just needs a few more details really to flesh it out. I would I would definitely advise including the artist's name, if these were one-of-one editions, and then kind of like going into telling the story behind these images. So it obviously doesn't have to be a very long description, but I think it really leaves the audience wanting. And I think too that they could kind of expand on the title a little bit more. So I would love to know kind of the thought process behind the name City Diary, and I would like to see that in the collection description, as well as just some more detail about these images and just maybe the emotions and the meaning behind this collection, because that's really what you're trying to do in a description. Is you're really trying to convey, this sense of the story to the audience, and you're trying to invite this future collector into your story, and so I think that the way you do that is by they're not going to know the exact just kind of like the exact location or the exact details or the feelings behind the shot, and I think that's always really important to try and convey in an opening description.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I will say one thing right off the bat. I think this looks like a generic OpenSea thing. Welcome to the home of City Diary on OpenSea.
Got it.
So I think maybe we don't have a description here at all.
Okay.
Is kind of my gut. So that being said, I'll say this right at the top. I think a good way to think about this is to remember that when you're on OpenSea, when you create the main description for the entire collection, it has a character limit. And so I think it may be really good to think about, you obviously want to flesh it out more than this. You need to give the overall thematic identity for your collection so people know what they're looking at. It doesn't have to be super descriptive. You don't have to describe individual pieces. You just want to give a nugget, a paragraph, maybe a couple details about the artist, but just know that you've got a character limit, so you don't have a lot of room. So this one, I think this is the generic one that you get when you sign up. So you want to write out a whole paragraph for this one. The other thing that I think is really important is I really don't like the non-capitalized collection title. And so while I know that if you look up here, obviously the way that the URL works, it's not capitalized, but I think these need to be capitalized. And that's something that's easy to edit in OpenSea. And then when you start going and looking at the individual pieces, I'm seeing a lot more robust descriptions, which is great. So we've got our created by, that's all populated by OpenSea. And then we've got a description of what's happening in the individual piece with your artist, the edition print information, location, year of construction, size, camera, genre, and you've got your license here, which is great.
Yeah, I agree with you that the overall description, kind of introducing the collection, needs to be concise. Definitely because of character limits, but also because when you're trying to craft, in my line of work, we call that a lead paragraph. And so you really, when you're kind of trying to write a description, you want to summarize your collection identity in probably like maybe 4 sentences, because that's what's going to hook a viewer or an audience, and if they're not hooked, then they're probably not going to read further than that. But I was also really happy to see more depth into the titles on each image, and then also in the description on each image. I think it's great that the artist defined, one-of-one, put location, kind of added some utility to it with the size, the camera, the genre, and had that license in there, which I know is very, very important to collectors. I also think they did a really good job of sort of describing each piece, and kind of the sentiment behind each image, and they did it in a really concise way as well.
I agree. So My favorite image in this collection is this one, woman with umbrella. And I think this is maybe where I would give a little bit of critique. So this is the description. We met this lady with an umbrella on a snowy day in the district of Istanbul, Zeyrek. It was a good photo in the depth of the street in the snow. So this would be my feedback, just from a copywriting standpoint, and the idea is that the photo hopefully stands on its own. And I think it's a really beautiful image. I love the traditional garb. I love the snow. I love the tonality. I love that there's also these satellite dishes up here. What I find is I feel like there's a little bit of a lack of emotion in the description. And I'd love to know maybe a little bit more about where this is taken and what is unique about this. And it's like I want to feel the cold in the words, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. I think it's really important to try and maximize the emotion in a description. I mean, the images will do that as well. I mean, a good image is always going to pull you in and it's going to make you feel, but a description is going to add on to that feeling, and it's going to add more depth to that image. So I definitely agree that just sort of adding more emotion into that writing, or even describing, I mean, they may not know this woman because, street photography is, normally, you're photographing random people on the street, but sometimes you can even not like make up the story, but you can tell the story of who they think they are, of who you as the artist think this person is. And I think it's always cool to add those creative touches as well.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that there are some places where it's where this is happening, These are, and this is okay. These are pretty literal descriptions of what we're looking at. While I was wandering around the Galata Bridge, one of the symbols of Istanbul for photography, this boy who passed me in front of the frame gave me such a look over his mother's shoulders that I did not miss it. Let me ask you this, Lauren. What is your take on? So this one, being a Western photographer from the United States, I mean, pretty much the NFT world kind of lives in English, is what I've been finding. This reads a little bit broken, and it's a little tricky for me. What is what is your take as somebody who has a career in writing? Do you feel like it works to leave it authentic, even though it doesn't read quite as well in English? Or is this something where you would encourage the artist to reach out to somebody else to help proofread?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dan. And I know there are so many creatives in the NFT space who are non-native English speakers, and sometimes it's their second, third, or fourth language. And of course, we want to be really attentive to that. I would definitely encourage non-native speakers to reach out to native speakers just to proofread for certain grammar elements, just because I know English is a very difficult language to learn and to translate, and I know this like as an English speaker who also has been trying to learn multiple languages too. And when you're trying to translate, from phonetic languages to English, it's just very difficult, and there's just certain things that are harder to grasp. I used to teach English to Arabic non-native speakers, so
Wow.
I'm familiar with how hard it is to write and speak this language, especially when you're coming from a more phonetic language rather than an alphabetic one like we are. So I would definitely encourage non-native speakers to reach out to native English speakers, like I said, just to proofread for certain copy. It doesn't mean that you have to completely rewrite your description in a Western way, but I think there's certain grammatical, like small grammatical touches that can be fine-tuned just to make the writing flow a little bit easier, and I think that will help collectors connect with it as well.
That makes sense. I like that. Well, why don't we, just for interest of time, because we have a few to get through, why don't we move on to the next artist, unless you have anything else you'd like to add about this one?
Nope, I think that sounds great.
All right. Okay, so next one is Pastel Rainbow Flora. I'll make sure I have that. Yep, that's the one. And for anybody who's listened to any of my the AMAs that I've co-led, I love the way Sloika presents imagery. So I always feel like it's kind of a treat to be able to spend some time looking at images here. So right off the bat, Harini Chokshi, hopefully I'm saying that right. But this is Pastel Rainbow Flora. I mean, obviously, this is a beautiful, it has a very strong thematic element here. We've already, it looks like a bunch of these have already sold. There's only 3 left, which is really great. So congratulations on that. So let's just take a look right at the beginning. So we've got our collection description. I believe each flower in nature is a soul blossoming. Each bloom has hope, spirit, and a unique vibe. I feel flowers are those friends that console at the time of grief or disappointment and spread happiness and bring comfort to your soul and a smile on your face. With this collection and each of my colorful fine art floral artwork, I'm trying to convey a unique story, mood, emotions, or expression. May these flowers bring you happiness and calmness like it does to me. So, go ahead. What's your thought on that, Lauren? On that, our initial. You think it's doing the job?
I definitely think this description is doing the job. And I love that they were able to really bring a sense of feeling into this. I love the language that they use here. I believe each flower in nature is a soul blossoming. I mean, that's such a beautiful metaphor. And I think anytime you can draw your viewer in with metaphors or, personification, language like that, it's really, it's really going to add, that extra touch. Just these sentences are constructed so beautifully. Each bloom has hope, spirit, and a unique vibe. I believe flowers are those friends that console at the time of grief. I mean, they're adding personality traits into their images and into objects that you may not think have a personality. But I think that's a really, really beautiful way of just kind of helping the audience connect to your story and helping the audience connect to each image as well.
Can I point something funny out here?
Sure.
This one is very yellow, right?
Yeah.
Look who owns it.
Oh, of course, Sarah Lindsay. I am not surprised.
Yeah. So this is a good one. Let's just look at the description for this individual piece. It's called Risen. Yellow color is associated with sunshine, energy, happiness, and optimism. The beautiful calla lily has risen from the closed bud to a beautiful bloom, making us feel hope and positivity. Interesting fact, Venus, the goddess of love, sex, and beauty, felt so threatened by their beauty that she cursed the flower to decrease its appeal. The curse produced the yellow spike in the center.
I love that this artist added these interesting facts to each image. It's kind of like they're going the extra mile to really showcase not only the meaning behind each flower, but also behind the colors, and they've just sort of, they've taken that extra step to really go further than, just what is the color of this flower, what is this flower, adding even historical value to it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And one of the things that's super interesting about this is, obviously, this is it's a successful collection that's worked really well. And sorry, I have teenage sons that are talking in my house. So I don't know if you can overhear them, but this one works really well. And I think I'm super impressed with the entire collection, with how it's presented. With the way that the style of narration, in some ways, the way it's the way that these are all set up, it works really well. And the questions that the artist asked is, does my collection description work? Do the individual descriptions work? And I think that it's a resounding yes. These all work really well.
It's a resounding yes for me. They've created a very beautiful narrative here.
And I always say it's a good thing that it works, because once it's minted on Sloika, it's minted. You can't change it. So, do you have anything else you want to add here aside from that these are really beautiful?
I don't think so. I think this collection flows really well, both visually and with the written copy.
No, these are just gorgeous. So, congratulations, Harini. These are really, really beautiful. You did a great job, and the sales that you've had already is evidence that you did something right.
Yes, congratulations. I don't expect these others to last long on the market either.
No. Okay, well, let's move on to the next one. The next one's called The Potter of Light, and it's by Marek Akhtar. And I mean, just right off the bat, like this is super interesting light. It's super, this is cool. This is really great work. I mean, look at that. Look at these light rays. Gorgeous. So let's take a look at the description. The Potter of Light. We've got 9 items. Haven't sold any yet, but these are beautiful. So I think it's only a matter of time before these end up in into collector's collection. I'm going to go ahead and read this. Pottery making in Cappadocia, Turkey, which developed as an heirloom profession by passing from father to son, from tribe to tribe, and adding something to itself at every period, has been the main livelihood of Avanos town of Nevşehir, Turkey, in the past as it is today. Avanos is the place of those who love and value their land. In the region where there are pottery workshops on every corner, the soil is turned into perfect works by being worked in the hands of craftsmen. Che Gökhan, one of the last pottery masters of the Cappadocia region, has been making pottery, which has been his father's profession for nearly 30 years. A mystical atmosphere emerges as he works on the pottery he made in his workshop in Avanos town, accompanied by the light beam falling on the jugs both in the morning and at the sunset hours. This collection consists of 9 exclusive photos of one edition, both taken on early morning blue light and at sunset golden light. Price of each photo is 0.2 ETH. So I think right off the bat, I would say that I think this particular collection could really benefit from a couple things. This feels like this is maybe a third longer than it probably needs to be. And I think I'm sensing a decent amount of repeating the same ideas in here. So I think that if you could proofread it and maybe get some help to tighten this up a little bit, what I'm seeing is that there are a couple main things that you're trying to communicate. First of all, there's this really amazing town where this pottery is made. And so I think landing on that for this first section would be great. And then to land on this idea that this is one potter that you've spent time with. But I don't know that you need to add that it's Avanos town again. I think you can say that one time in the upper paragraph. And then I think I like that it says there's 9 exclusive photos. I think you don't need to put the price in here because all of that stuff shows up here and it shows up in the photos. What do you think, Lauren?
I'm actually gonna disagree with you a little bit on what needs to come first.
You're welcome to disagree. Bring your opinion.
No worries. I think since the theme of this collection is the Potter of Light, I would love to see the description lead with the potter and then go into the details of, what makes this potter special, what makes this region special, why it resonates so much. Just because, you don't want to bury the lead, right? You don't want to bury the most important part of your story. And so in this case, this artist is really trying to showcase the potter and his skill and just the incredible value this potter brings, to the region and just he's one of the last, right? So those are all really compelling details, I think, that should be up front. And then you can kind of support that message with the language we have about the region of Turkey and the pottery in that region and so forth.
I like that. So you're basically saying flip the first and second paragraphs.
Yes,
I
exactly.
mean, you probably need to rewrite them a little bit for content, but
Right. And like you said, I agree too with your comments about some of the information is a little repetitive, and so you can kind of cull some of those repeating ideas out and tighten up that narrative a little bit, just to make it flow a little bit better. And yeah, I agree with that too.
yeah, I think the biggest one I'm looking at is that first paragraph. It has a bit of it runs on a lot. And, in English, and I know that that's not the case in every language, but in English, you kind of want to have your sentences. They need to have kind of one solid idea. And when you start to run things together, it doesn't give the reader a chance to pause and a chance to let that idea kind of sink in. So by breaking up the sentences a little bit into ideas, it helps you to kind of land those ideas.
Totally agree with that. And I think too, this is probably something that wouldn't be immediately common to those who are non-native English speakers, but it's also always good to write in active tense versus passive tense. So anytime you can, so active tense would
give us an example. Give us an example of that one.
Let me look. So yeah, the first sentence here, pottery making in Cappadocia, Turkey, which developed as an heirloom profession by passing from father to son, from tribe to tribe, and adding something to itself in every period, has been the main livelihood of Avanos town of Nevşehir, Turkey, in the past as it is today. So this is a passive sentence. You're using has been. So I would change this to maybe say, pottery making in Cappadocia, Turkey, developed as an heirloom profession, passing from father to son. So developed is going to be your active verb, and I would end the sentence there because that's kind of concisely telling the story. And then I would start, where you talk about from tribe to tribe, I would make that a second sentence. But instead of having your verb down here as has been, you want it to really hook the reader, and you want it to be active instead of making the reader sort of like search for that.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I had never thought about that, and maybe that's a cultural thing. But I think when I'm now that you're mentioning it, I've noticed that in a lot of non-English native speaker descriptions, is that there's this sense of past, and the way they talk about it like it's in the past.
Exactly.
So that might be a thing for our non-native English speakers to kind of think about as they're writing these descriptions. That active, as in now, like you've captured something that's still happening.
That's right.
That makes it feel more powerful. It helps people connect with it.
It does. It just makes the sentence more dynamic, and not to say there's not a place for using passive voice. There is. We use it in marketing quite a bit, when writing certain copy, but I tend to be more drawn to active sentences because, like you said, there's more power, there's more punch behind them, and it's what is going to, I think, kind of delineate that kind of extra, I don't know, just that extra touch that you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at a couple. We'll spend a couple more minutes on this one. I just want to look at a couple of individual pieces. So here we've got, in Avanos district of Cappadocia, Turkey, the pottery master named Che Gökhan is checking the strength of his pots, which he created by working all day under the sunset light that hits the pots before moving them to the kiln. So my gut, and this is just me, is I'm having a tough time because while I know that these pieces might live individually at some point in someone's collection, I feel like this needs to be tightened up a little bit. The Avanos district of Cappadocia, Turkey. I just want to see this a little tighter. Maybe just say pottery master Shea Gokon is checking the strength of his pots. I don't know that you need to add this stuff at the beginning. Maybe you could add it at the end. That's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, that was going to be my feedback as well, because we've already established the location and some of these other details in the overall description of the collection, so I don't think there's a need to repeat them in each image. And I agree with you. I think a compelling description would be, the pottery master. I'm probably gonna say his name very terribly. Shea Gokon is checking the strength of his pots, which he created by working all day under the sunset light that hits before moving them to the kiln. And I think that's really all you need, because it's, this is obviously a very beautiful photo. I mean, just the way the light moves through this, the use of contrast and shadow is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I'm seeing is, as I'm looking through all the different pieces, is that we have we're getting the same wording with just, so what it is, they all say in Avanos, District of Cappadocia, Turkey, the pottery master named Shea Gokon is, and then what he's doing, and then what kind of light hitting his workshop. And I think that it ends up being a little too generic. So I would pull back a little bit and look at getting rid of the generic part of the descriptions and just tighten up on what he's doing. I don't know that you don't need this whole section at the beginning. Just Pottery Master Shea Gokon is checking his newly made pots. What is he checking them for? What is and just in the morning light. And maybe, that's just kind of my take. As I feel like it feels like it's a little generic with a few words right in the middle.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it be a little more descriptive.
Same. I like your question. What is he doing? I would love to sort of be let in on the secret, behind what he's doing with this pottery, behind the process. You have to, the audience isn't going to know exactly what's happening in this photo if they're not familiar with it. So sometimes you have to lead them through that narrative. And so I think that's what I would like to see out of this collection.
Yeah. The artist did ask a couple questions that are not really related to the description, but he asked, what do you think about the color harmony of the collection? And if you were a collector, what piece would you collect first? I actually really like the color in general. I think if I had to pick, I'd say maybe these two, while they're similar because they're facing the same part of the room. I don't know that these two fit the rest of them the same way. They don't have the same quality of light. So I think that maybe those two don't work as well. And for me, this is the winner by a long shot.
I agree with that as well. I think the last two, the way the light is, the first, let me go back and look at the collection here and pull it up. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the first 6, the way the light is shaped is so similar, and the tonality is beautiful. I love how they went from the cool tones to the warm tones. I think that was a really good use of kind of like leading through this collection. And I think the last 3 for me don't quite fit, because that's
this one here maybe.
Yeah.
And this one, and then this one.
Yep. I think just the way that they're a little more stark, a little more matte, and these first 6 are just so ethereal and dreamy, that to me the last 3 just don't quite fit in with everything. And I think the piece that I would collect, the one you chose is beautiful, but I actually like the sunset checking the pots. I don't know, I just really love that light coming in from the top and streaming all the way down, and those just beautiful leading lines.
I like that one too. It's also really like, look at how how sharp and how it's really precise. I like that.
It's super crisp, and the symmetry in it is really cool too.
Yeah. No, that's great. This is great work. Well, what do you say we move on?
Sounds good.
Could I please cut in and ask a question from general chat?
For sure.
We were wondering, based on that advice, do you recommend that there's information about the collection in the individual description, or do you recommend leaving that information out and only including information that's specific to the individual piece? Since that description will lock in place once it's purchased and it does travel with the individual piece. So if it's important to also have collection information included in the individual description as well.
That's a good question. And that's El Mexicano is who asked that, right? Okay, so here's kind of my take on it, and I don't mean to jump in ahead of you, Lauren, here, but I like the idea of a short description that is unique to the individual piece, and then to have something about, you know how there's like this section with the colons down here, artist, edition, location, year created. I'd almost like to see, collection here. Put something about the collection down here, or at the bottom underneath the main description. But I kind of would like the main description for the piece to be unique, and while in this one, it's there's this from the you could say from the collection about the Avanos district of Cappadocia, Turkey, where pottery is a primary creative industry, something like that. You could put that right down here below, and that could be common to every one of the pieces. Something like that, maybe. I don't know. Lauren, what do you think?
No, I completely agree with that. I think I don't think you need to include all that in the description. I'm with you. I like having the individual image descriptions and then including that information kind of below. Some advice that was given to me was if it's like image 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 in that collection, put your collection title and then say image 1 of 8 or 2 of 8, 3 of 8. That way it just kind of tells who's looking at the piece, what number it is in your collection.
Yeah. Well, and El Mexicano says, "Oh, that's a good idea. Like from the collection X." I kind of like that. I do have one strong opinion about numbers. I think that you need to be really careful. If you're putting them in Sloika or you're putting them in Foundation or something like that, feel free to number them. I don't know that numbering makes a lot of sense. I really prefer just come up with a better title that's super unique, and then add what collection it's from in your description. Because numbers, I don't think they help necessarily. That's just my personal take, and I think that they're a little generic.
No, that makes sense, and that advice was actually given to me about my Sloika collection because of the way they populate on OpenSea.
Right.
You don't automatically see what collection it's part of, so
right.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay, so in interest of time, should we move on?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The next one is Tobacco Farmers, and this one is by Ufuk Turpkan, and this is an artist who we've featured before and have talked about in the past. We've looked at some of Ufuk's work. So right off the bat, let's just look at the description. I'll go ahead and read it. Production of tobacco is a demanding process that requires delicate care over a 6-month period. In this collection, I will not tell you how tobacco is produced and what stages it goes through. I think that's a typo there. Every photo frame you look at, you will witness the individual life stories of tobacco production, and you'll see the connection between the tobacco and farmer's life. By getting this collection, you will buy a story, not a photo. In this collection, I share the tobacco farmers' themed photos I took in different parts of Anatolia between 2016 and 2021. One-of-one edition, high-resolution JPEGs. About the artist, Ufuk Turpkan is an award-winning photographer based in Turkey. He liked to be part of life and to eternalize these moments. His photographs reflect the relation between labor and human. What do you think, Lauren? What's your initial thought on our overall description?
Yeah, overall, I think that the bones of this description are really good. I think what I want here is there's a lot of kind of like literal telling going on, and I would like to see that translated more through the imagery and through the actual storytelling and narrative. So, for example, the second sentence in this collection, I will not tell you how tobacco is produced and what stages it goes through. I would completely get rid of that. I think that's superfluous information. It's not needed. And then I would just go right into talking, maybe kind of paring down this third sentence a little bit more. Instead of saying every photo frame you look at, again, I think that's extra information that's not needed. I would just change that to, you will witness the individual life stories of tobacco production and see the connection between tobacco and farmer's life. I actually think that's a really strong leading sentence, and that should be up further, because that really is the heart of this collection. And the heart of this collection is not the tobacco, but it's the farmers who make this tobacco, and it's their stories. So I think that is where I would start with this description. I do like that they added an about the artist, and my other suggestion would be just to run this by a native English speaker for proofreading and just for small grammatical edits. Even though it seems small, sometimes those grammatical things can really hang up. You can get hung up on them, and so if someone's really connecting with your piece, but then all of a sudden there's, a kind of a glaring grammar error, that can be a turnoff.
And I'm going to say this because I think it's just good to mention it. I think people tend to be. We try to be gracious, and people want to be mindful of the fact that English is not everybody's first language. At the same time, if there's any slight chance that a potential collector could see this and get hung up on the fact that the grammar's not quite right, like that's just something you should fix. It's something that I would like to offer that on behalf of MetaJungle. I'll just say that if you were to put this into, jump into one of the chat channels in the MetaJungle server and say, I've got a description. Would somebody be willing to proofread this for me and make sure that it reads well in English? People are going to jump all over it. And I don't see a lot of people trying that. And I've been saying it for quite a few weeks. I think that you should take advantage of this community and put it out there and say, hey, could a native English speaker take a run at this?
100%. It's actually a service that I offer. I don't advertise it. I haven't advertised it very much, but I do a lot of copy editing for other NFT photographers, and I'm super happy, especially to do it for our non-native English speakers.
MetaGirl, do you mind telling, is there a specific channel that would be good for that? I mean, I know we have a marketing channel, but is there a specific channel that would be the best place for that? Okay. Yeah. I love that. I think just it's something that I've had people reach out to me. I have people that are great English speakers that will still say, hey, how does this translate well? Am I getting this right? And I'm yeah. Right. No, I love it. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these pictures, and look at the individual descriptions. So we've got this is quite a few. It's 20 items, and I'm just going to say there's some really beautiful images here, and I love that it feels like there's very few. There's a few that have a little bit of overlap, but there's so many unique images here in this set, and I love it. So I just picked one randomly. Tobacconists. Am I getting that right? Am I pronouncing that right? Tobacconists. Number 18. My childhood was spent in a tobacco field. My greatest joy was playing hide and seek with my brother among the tobacco leaves. My brother couldn't find me while I was playing hide and seek, but I was always caught by my elder brother who came from university with a camera around his neck in the summers. I really, really like this story. This is one of those ones that could benefit from just a little bit of proofreading. And it would help clarify the idea here. I love the story, but I think there's some little things that would help to have somebody look at.
I love these descriptions because I feel like they have a very Humans of New York type feel. I
Right.
don't know how many people are familiar with that, but it's a photographer who just goes around New York, takes photos of people, and he has them tell the story in their own words. And I think that's what this artist is trying to do. I truly feel like the descriptions that I'm reading are words straight from that subject's mouth. And I really love that because it's not something that I've seen in a ton of collections, and even in portrait collections too. So having having that farmer tell their story instead of you as the artist trying to tell it for them, I think is really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. This one's specifically like that. Number 12. I said, of course I would laugh. Wouldn't you laugh when you get the reward for your efforts? My late father used to say that if the tobacco plant grows and flourishes, its owner will laugh too. This year, I always remembered him while harvesting tobacco. As my father said, the tobacco plant flourished and we laughed.
I mean, you just connect so much with each person in the image. Like, I want to meet this woman, I want to meet every person in this photo. I want to sit down with them and hear their life story and have them teach me things. That's how beautiful this collection is.
Yeah, I agree. Well, good. I think this is great. There's some really great things here, and the thing that this will benefit from most would be getting in front of a native English speaker to kind of just tighten things up a little bit.
Yep, wholeheartedly agree.
Do we have? I didn't look to see questions. What are your thoughts on all the photos? I think the photos are great. No issues there. If I had to give just one broader piece of advice, I would say that there are maybe a couple that this one's great. All of the ones that are inside kind of this greenhouse are great. I think maybe this one's maybe. I like it for some reasons, but I think that it may be not as strong as this one here. So number 15 might be a little stronger than number 16, especially because when you line them up in order, they're right next to each other. And I think this is by far a stronger version of this framing and this look. So if anything, there might be a few you could tighten up a little bit, maybe pull out a couple of these, and it would still be a really strong collection. Lauren, I gotta mute my mic for just a second. You mind talking about this one for a little bit?
Of course. So I think we're gonna move on to the next one because I think Dan and I have covered this collection pretty extensively, and it's a wonderful collection. I really hope to see more sales off of this because, like I said, the story is wonderful. Okay, so the next one we are going to look at is Unhindered Love. And I may have to wait until Dan comes back to pull it up on the screen.
Sorry, I had a solicitor at the door.
No worries.
Did you move on to the next one?
Moved on to Unhindered Love, that's right.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No,
I have a bunch of teenagers here, but none of them could answer the door. So.
Okay. Again, I'm very sorry if I mispronounce your name. So this is by, is it Marcel Pataki? I'm so sorry. I'm sure I butchered that. So please forgive
that works for me. That works for me.
And I'm going to go ahead and read the description on this.
Great.
If there's love, there are no obstacles. I wanted to show a section of Mr. Erkin's life in my story. He lost both legs as a result of an accident in his life, but he didn't give up. He was happy when he got her first wheelchair. He was now able to meet the animals he loved so much. Later, he got a battery-powered wheelchair, and his happiness doubled because he can go wherever he wants. He goes to the park every day and feeds the hungry animals. Now he has a loving and happy life with animals. Seven works in total, edition 1 of 1, Instagram, and they have their Instagram and Twitter handles, and then it says new address. So right off the bat, I think there's a couple issues with this description. Again, I think just some grammatical things that can be easily taken care of. There's a lot of missing punctuation, and especially the end here where it just kind of runs into the end of the description, and then there's no punctuation, and it goes into 7 works in total with the additions. So I think that information where you talk about 7 works in total, additions, have your social handles, that should be in a second paragraph, so that it's separate from the description. But I really like the beginning of the story they're trying to tell. If there's love, there are no obstacles. And I think that's a beautiful lead into the collection title, which is Unhindered Love. I really was moved by this collection title when I first saw it, and I first looked at all of the pieces, because it is truly just such a lovely description of all of the images in this collection. And unhindered is just, I feel like it's a word that people don't use often, but it's a powerful word. It's an active word, and it's so becoming of love, because love, like true love, is not hindered by anything. So really great job on naming this. I think other feedback I would have for this artist is just to, again, like, run this by a native English speaker just to proofread some of this copy. Some of the sentences are just, it's a little hard to understand them, and so I think if you just had someone who was a native English speaker help you just kind of fine-tune them a little bit, it would just really add that extra power to the description. But I think it's great that they named the subject. They talked about the accident, how he lost both of his legs. I would love to know maybe just a little bit more about maybe when Mr. Erkin got the wheelchair, so how long it was after his accident. And then also, it's kind of abrupt how it moves into he was now able to meet the animals he loves so much. So I think just elaborating on Mr. Erkin and just what he's been through and his love for animals a little bit more would just really add some extra depth here.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. If I start looking at the individual pieces, one thing I'll mention here is that I'm noticing most of them have the same exact description. It's just copy pasted. I don't know if they're all like that. I'm guessing they are.
Yes, they are. And yeah, I think that having individual image titles would definitely help, I think, add more story to this collection too, because there's a lot of emotion in these images. There's just looking at Mr. Erkin and just the different stages of his life. There's so many different ways you could play with words to name these descriptions. My favorite one here is Unhindered Love 004, where he's out of his wheelchair and he's laying on the ground with the dogs, and you can just tell, you can see the joy, you can see the comfort in that photo. And I think those are all things that you want to try and establish in your titles and in your descriptions.
Yeah, I agree. So this collection has one of the things that maybe my biggest piece of advice. There's a couple different things here, but the number one is, I really believe that every single image that you sell as an NFT, or that you sell anywhere, it needs to have its own unique title. um, and it needs to have its own description. So copy and pasting the description from your collection into your photo, to me, that I don't like that. I feel like you need each one to have their own description, and then these are just numbered. That's fine, but to me, I hate to, I don't want to say sloppy or anything like that. It's not really what I'm thinking. I just feel like I want to see more care. I want to see more care in the titles, and I'd like to see individual descriptions for each photo.
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, like, not trying to say this in a bad way, but to, maybe to a potential collector, the copy paste can come across as lazy, even if that's not the intent. That's not the intention. But you always want, like Dan said, you want to show the utmost care and thought that you put into your descriptions. You want to put as much thought into your descriptions as you did into taking the photo.
Exactly. I just took a little detour here because I wanted to go and look and see other work by this artist and see kind of how they've done things here. This is a collection called Lonely People, and if you look at it, it's got a really short and succinct collection title or collection description. Some people like crowds, others like to be alone. We also need to be alone from time to think, to collect ourselves, or to rest. You should even create moments where you can be alone from time to time and make the most of these moments. And if you look at the individuals, take a break. Sometimes the easiest way to get to your destination is to take a break. I'm going to look at another one to see. Yeah, look at this. See? So this artist already kind of knows this. These are all better descriptions. They're more unique. They're each slightly different. Oh, look at this. Never underestimate the stairs that take you higher, no matter how small or dilapidated. So is kind of what I would just tell you as an artist, is that you're already doing it right in your other collections. So I think if you were to kind of model your other collections after what you're doing in this one, I think that's going to serve you really well. These individual descriptions are great. I don't know, what do you think?
No, I agree with everything you just said.
This is a little trick that Mike and I started doing a few sessions back. We just start going poking around and seeing what other work the artist has, and so a lot of times we find that they're already doing it right somewhere else. They already kind of know what to do. Do you have anything else to add about this one?
I don't.
Okay. Well, why don't we move on to the next one? And I'm just going to say right off the bat, there's no way I'm pronouncing this person's name right. Hrant Khachatryan, I'm guessing hopefully that's right. And it looks like maybe this person's from Armenia, because I'm seeing that there's something in the description about Armenia. But let's take a look. So Lux series by Hrant Khachatryan. Hopefully I got that right. On a cold winter day, nearly 30 years ago, a 9-magnitude earthquake destroyed cities and small villages in Armenia. In between the half-destroyed buildings, there still stands the oldest barbershop of Gyumri named Lux. The salon was first opened in 1941 and has not closed its doors neither during World War II nor today. This wouldn't be possible without barbers and their dedication to the work they do, coming to the salon every day no matter what, and working so hard to pay the bills and keep their second home alive. I've become obsessed with the idea of visiting and documenting their unique story. The atmosphere here smacks you in the face from the moment you enter the premises. Benefits for collectors. The first collector will receive a full-size print of the NFT. When the collection is sold out, I'll donate 30% of profits from the sales to the barbershop to cover basic needs like hot water, changing broker equipment, etc., as it had been only renewed once in 1986. These are really, really cool.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite collections out of the submissions. I'm just really in love with the description. I think this artist did a fantastic job of nicely summarizing just the meaning and the intent behind this collection as a whole. I love the detail that they provided, but they didn't go overboard with it, right? They gave you the details that were most important, that were the most compelling and the most meaningful. And then that really drew me in as the reader, to become invested in these images and in these barbers.
Yeah. No, this is great. One thing I'm going to point out is that we have a very good overall description for the whole collection, but they're very sparse individual photo descriptions.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I would have liked to have seen, a little more depth and detail in these individual photos, because there's so much going on in these photos. I mean, gosh, look at this woman. There's so much character in her, just in her face, and just in this, one click of a shutter. And so I would just love to know more about her and to know just a little bit of her story.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that's maybe kind of super interesting about this one is that in this case, it actually really works. It's literally, the title is Grandmama, and it says Margarita, the cleaner of the salon. Like, I think that it's super tight and sparse, but I think this one works. So I kind of like the keeping it really sparse sometimes. It almost has a little more of a the way these individual descriptions work. You could almost see these being, the captions next to, for editorial in a magazine.
Yeah, to me, they really read like newspaper captions.
So maybe a little more would be helpful. But I think overall, I think these work really well. I'm a big fan of the overall beginning collection description. If I were in the future, I would say maybe lean to a little bit more here. I'd love to know, like, what is this guy's name? How long has he been working there? That sort of thing.
Same. I'd love to see the story developed a little bit more in each individual photograph. But again, too, like you said, sometimes the shorter, more concise captions worked. I think for me, it's a personal preference, just because I really like character development. So that's something that I always look for.
Yeah. I think if I were going to give the artist one, kind of a solid piece of advice, I would say this work feels like it could be a story in like a National Geographic. And I think the photos are that kind of quality. Like they really capture the vibe of being there, the old, what's the right word here? The timelessness of this place. And I think one way you could really make this stronger would be to think about your individual photos. Go look at the captions on National Geographic articles. Go look at the captions that go along with the photos, and aim for your individual photo description captions to be like those.
Oh, that's so great. I completely agree with that, Dan. And when I was looking at this collection, I thought it really was presented like a photojournalism essay. Like, that was the vibe that I got from it, which I really loved.
Yeah. Look at this one. Look at this picture right here. Life pattern, an old red chair with cracked leather and creaky floorboards around it. I can totally see this in like the New York Times.
100% agree.
Yeah. Yeah, these are great. Okay, so this is great. I think really beautiful work, really great overall description, and then I would just maybe flesh these out a little bit more in future collections. Let's move on to the next one. So this one is called Journey to Human, and it's Fatih Mehmet Özdemir. I'm getting a challenge here leading these AMAs through MetaJungle, because we get so many fantastic artists that are not from my part of the world, and I love it. So this particular collection, Journey to Human, Here is our description. The journey to man is sometimes one of the longest and most difficult things. In my collection consisting of 6 photographs, the journey that starts from the inner world of a person continues until he remembers his duties in life. This collection, named Journey to Human, consists of a total of 6 NFTs, each of one edition. Okay, so I'm going to point something out right off the bat. It says 6 NFTs, but there's 7 in the collection. So I don't know if I know that you can change descriptions in Foundation. So you might want to.
Yeah,
you might want to look at that and see if there's a way for you to adjust that. And then let's just take a look at some of these individual pieces. Look at this one. Crazy Butcher. Fantastic title. This photo I took in, I'm going to pronounce it, Kurikal on Eid al-Adha, becoming a turning point for me. In this photo, it is seen that a butcher focused on his work for hours despite his bloody face. After this photo was shared, it attracted great attention on social media. This interest of people caused me to turn to photography more. The butcher scene in the photo was identified with the actor of the American TV series The Walking Dead. And then we've got artist, camera, lens, dimensions, resolution. We've got a whole bunch of stuff here, which is great. And this one, just look at that. This guy, man, look at that. So, what do you think, Lauren? What's your take on these?
Yeah, I think with this collection, I was a little confused by the description, specifically by the interest in it's the journey to man is sometimes one of the longest and most difficult things. I didn't quite understand that sentence, and I think it is kind of supported down here where he talks about the journey that starts from the inner world of a person continues until he remembers his duties in life. But I don't know. I feel like this description is a little bit disconnected, and I want to see some more. So, what kind of journey are we going on? What is the journey? What are the details of the journey? I would like to see the artist kind of like lead the viewer through that journey a little bit more, because at the end of the day, like the viewer don't know the thought process, and so I think we just need to have a little more detail established there about the journey, because at the moment for me it's a little bit sparse, and so I don't quite know the intent behind the message.
I tend to agree. When I wanted to kind of look through some of the pieces and see if there was a kind of a common thread. What I guess maybe what I would kind of say is it seems. I'm just going to be really honest here. The description, I think that there's a language barrier that's just not making it through. I think that the artist might have a theme in mind. The journey to man is someone. Maybe they mean something like the journey to becoming a complete person, or the path. I'm struggling a little bit to figure out what this one means. Even the journey that starts from the inner world of a person continues until he remembers his duties in life. Like, I kind of get, okay, is this talking about finding your career, your calling? Because then we have this picture of this child, and it's called Childlike Dreams, and I wonder, like, this kid doesn't have any duties in life, so I don't know how to piece that together.
Yeah. So is the journey more about? I feel like maybe what they're trying to convey is like that journey of inner purpose.
Sure.
But it didn't quite get there because, like you said, there's definitely probably a language barrier that's just preventing some of that from coming through.
Yeah. And let me say this. These are really beautiful images. So for me, the biggest piece when I think about collections and how you write, how you present with words, is to figure out how do you communicate the common theme. I don't know that you found a common theme in this one, or if you have, there's a language barrier that's keeping English speakers from understanding it, or at least these two English speakers. And all that being said, like this is beautiful work, so I kind of would like to see it unified so that you can have more sales and people can kind of understand how these all connect together. Because this is like this is beautiful. Hey, wait, hang on a second. Does that name look familiar?
Oh, it does. Oh my goodness.
So this is a picture of our same guy.
Yeah, the potter.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I was looking at this smoke and this, this fancy light, and I was like, that looks kind of familiar. I'm just going to look through a couple more of these. Yeah, so I think these are really great images overall, but I think that you're lacking a thematic, something tying them together. And I would almost say that, like, I think this one maybe here, this doesn't really fit in the collection with these other photos.
I agree with that. I think what I'm seeing through this collection now is all of these photos are taken at a different time in a different place with different people, but they're ultimately connected by the human experience.
Sure.
And so that's kind of the thread I'm starting to unravel here a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so what would your advice be to Fatih? What would your advice be on how they could better piece together their descriptions?
Yeah, so I think what you were saying before is finding out how to bring unity to all of these photos through your descriptions, and specifically, especially in that title and in the introductory description, because that, and maybe this isn't on Foundation, it's presented a little bit differently. You kind of have to dig for that overall description. So if someone hasn't found that overall description, I would definitely make sure that you have unifying language in each piece that connects each of these images together, and ties back into the thematic element that you're trying to convey. So if the title was this journey to human, I want to understand more about what that means and what it means specifically for each individual piece.
Makes sense to me. Should we move on to the next one?
Yes.
Okay. Black White Lives XXL. All right. And our this is Burker Dalmas, if I'm saying that right. I'll go ahead and I'm going to read this one. I present the moments I see while walking around the streets in black and white. Black and white photos have always seemed more realistic to me. In this collection, I combined a total of 10 black and white photographs that I think reflect the emotion more colorfully. This collection of my works, which has always been a turning point for me in photography, it will support me in my new projects. Each one has a different story. Of course, some of the income earned from the works produced with years of experience and love of photography will go back to other artists who support the NFT community. Another feature of this collection is that the person who buys the works will also have commercial copyright. Total 10 works, edition 1 of 1. Okay, so first of all, I saw 10 here multiple times, but I see that there's only 9 items in the collection. So, 8. No, there's 10. That's just weird. It's just OpenSea being stupid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so there are 10. So it's being dumb. I feel like looking at this, there's some things that feel a little bit off to me with this paragraph. I'm just gonna say it that I really believe, and I've said this with previous collections we've reviewed. I think black and white is not. I don't want to be too critical here. I'm thinking black and white is not a collection theme. I don't think it works well as a collection theme. So I would probably think that having a better theme that people can understand might make more sense. Like what I see is I'm looking at a lot of portraits here, a couple of silhouettes, but I see some great portraits, portrait work, interesting still life, or not still life, but interesting shots here that are portraits of people. And to me, black and white portraits of this area, of people that live in this area, is a more interesting theme than just black and white. So even though you said black white lives, calling it a black and white portrait collection, I think makes more sense. You don't talk about portraits here at all, and so I think that potentially could make this a stronger overall collection description. Your turn.
No, I definitely agree with that assessment, Dan. I think this is kind of going into the realm of, it's almost like where you want people to show you, not tell you. And it's just a little too literal for me, I think. I think I want to see that theme. I want to see that theme come out in the images and in the story themselves, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay, so look at this one. This is Black White Lives 002. This one has a really, look at this guy's big, huge mustache. That's awesome. And I'm just going to read the description here. I worked in coffee houses in Bolu, one of the authentic cities of Turkey, especially one of the friendly and hospitable people I met in a cafe in the town of Mudurnu. His incredibly humorous and sincere conversation has led to the accumulation of many beautiful people around him. He is a retired. In his spare time, he chats with his friends and does various activities in this cafe. It made me very happy that it was included in my collection with its photographic image and warm conversation. While we were chatting, his friends in the back were constantly sending humorous words. This is a great moment for me. I like to create deformations by taking portraits in a narrow area with a wide-angle lens and to frame them with a wide frame, even if the area is narrow, so I can shock our eyes with an unfamiliar world. This is great for me. See, like, to me, that's a super interesting description. Even described why super wide angle, you know? Same thing.
Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, same thing here. Big, long description of exactly who this person is and why he shot it this way.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see that reflected in the title, actually, somehow. If you could creatively kind of reflect that. I'm not quite sure how I'd do that. I'd have to think about it. I think one of the things that I might suggest is, for these descriptions, is for the artist to take himself out of the narrative, because I think you want the audience to focus on your subject. So down here where he, in the description for here in 002, he said, "This is a great moment for me." I think that's an awesome sentiment, but what we really want to focus on is the story and the story of the subject of this portrait. And so that's what I want to know about, just as the viewer.
Yeah, I agree. So I think ostensibly we're here to talk about descriptions and how the words play. I'm looking at this collection and I think this is a collection of portraits. I would probably, if I were going to think about this and I were going to refine this, I would change it so that your description and your titling, I'd probably get rid of the XXL. I don't think that adds anything. I would probably change it to black and white lives and then talk about it being portraits, and I'd probably get rid of the ones that aren't portraits. I would zero in. I'm guessing you probably have more work like these. This number 1, number 5, probably number 10, Yeah, number 10 is great. Um, number number 3, 2, 1. There's some great portrait work here, and that's what I would lean into. Not that it's black and white. Lean into the fact that these are really interesting portraits, and tighten up what you're describing. Talk about who these people are. Your descriptions of these people are fantastic. You just need to tighten them up a little bit, make them a little more powerful. And I think lean away from this idea that black and white is your theme, because I don't think black and white is a great theme.
I agree with all of that, Dan.
Anything else you want to add about this one?
Nope, I think we've covered it.
Okay, well, let's move on. The next one is by Ahmet Aslan, and it's called Old Professions. This is pretty interesting. I'm hoping that the description holds up as well as the photographs. I just see old professions and I see the photographs and I go, okay, this makes sense to me. So let's look. Also, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that almost every one of our artists today have been Turkish. That's been kind of crazy that we're so, and not all of them, because we've got one I think that was former USSR, the one with the barbershop. That was Armenia, but mostly Turkish in this one. So this one, Turkey, as a bridge between East and West, hosts many different kind of cultures and civilizations. Professions are one of the greatest legacies left to us from these cultures. With developing technology, we start to need less to handmade things. So professions which are required handmade disappear day by day, and I take photos of old professions for years with aim of keeping alive and transferring to future these cultures. My collection consists of the most special photos of old professions. This collection consists of 6 special photos of one edition. Price of each photo is 0.15 ETH. You've got your artist, Ahmet, a teacher, a visual storyteller, and then an email address. I guess, first of all, I'll say that I think I get what you're getting at here, but this is classically one of these descriptions that you should reach out in whatever our future channel is in MetaJungle, and let's get you some help with writing this and getting it so that it reads well in English. There's a bunch of little typos and some things that are repeated, and I don't think this has to be a super complicated description. You just need to just tighten this up and see if you can get some help rewriting this. But the work is fantastic.
Yep, I agree with that. I thought that the sentiment behind the description was perfect. It just needs some grammatical and fine-tuning and some spelling work. And yeah, I think just with some fine-tuning, it would be a really great description.
Yeah. So look at this one. This is great. Skilled of reed flute. Skilled Semil turns canes into works of art for years. Due to financial difficulties, he couldn't buy reed flutes, so he decided to make his reed flute by himself. Canes turned into an indispensable passion for him in time. Semil, who didn't have the money to buy a flute on time, transports flutes made of reed to every place in the world, and he earns one's keep with this way now. Yeah, so once again, this is something where I think that the idea here is great. I love the story you're trying to tell here, and I think that if we got a little bit of help with translating this into English in a way that makes a little more sense, I think you've got it. In other words, I love the theme. I love your photography. We just need to get these tightened up a little bit and make them read well in English.
I completely agree with that as well. I think the artist has just a really beautiful sense of how to tell the story. They just need help, like you said, making it flow and read well.
Yeah, look at this photo up close too.
Yeah, the lighting in these are just breathtaking.
Completely agree. I'm going to look at a couple more here. Oh, here. This is great. Felt. Look at this guy. This guy's getting after it. Oh, man, look at the detail. Yeah, these are great. These are great.
Beautiful collection. I mean, gosh, yeah, I think felt is my favorite one.
That light's really special.
It's very special. Just all of it, just the way that he's leaning into his craft. I mean, that just sort of starts the whole journey through that photo.
Oops, it looks like I'm having some OpenSea issues here.
Oh.
Like, get this to reload. There we go. Well, I don't have a whole lot more to add here. I think this is, very, very much one of the ones where we could really benefit from getting some help. And I'm just going to say this because I don't know if anybody else is or if it's going to make any difference. It kind of bums me out that there's not a way for artists to kind of just do things in their own native language. But the reality is this is where the market is. So let's just come up with a way to do this better. Let's figure out a way to help each other.
Yep, I agree, Dan. And I think there is a way to, like I said, help non-native speakers tune their messaging, but keep their voice. I think that's the most important part, is just to tweak that grammar a little bit.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Why don't we move on to our last one? This is Life in Village by Niatzi Gergen. You ready to take a look at this one?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't get to my unmute button fast enough.
No, you're okay. Do you want to go ahead and read this one?
Sorry, my computer is freaking out. Yes. Okay, Life in Village. In this collection, I focused on the agricultural activities and tiring struggles of people living in rural areas. In these lands, women and children work like ants in all seasons. These photographs, in which I describe the difficult village life and the Anatolian geography, contain wonderful stories, emotions, colors, and contrasts. My collection, Life in Village, consists of 12 unique photographs, and they are all one-of-one edition.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Also, full disclosure here, I just have to say that I actually own a piece by Niatzi. So, I'm
awesome.
already impressed with this work. It's what a great photographer. So what do you think about this main description? How does that sit to you?
Yeah, I think I think I might change the title around instead of Life in Village to Village Life. I think that just reads just a little bit more smoothly. I think there's just like maybe a couple minor grammatical tweaks that I would make to this description. I think you could just tighten up the language a little bit. I don't think you need to say in which I described the difficult village life. You could just say these photographs describe the difficult village, or these photographs show or capture the difficult village life in the Anatolian geography. They contain wonderful stories, emotions, colors, and contrasts. Yeah, I think there's just maybe some extra language that you could get rid of that sort of makes unnecessary pauses, and then it would just flow really well.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I'm noticing, and I don't know if this is where this comes from, or if this is how you mentioned the active voice, right? And I wonder, I'm seeing in a lot of these descriptions, people talking about what they're going to do, like in which I will describe, or this is where I will show you. There's a lot of this is what I'm going to do, or this is here's what I will do, or here's what you will do. And I think that might be just a language thing. The thing you're going to do as opposed to the thing you are doing. Or I think we typically would say these photos show as opposed to this is what you will see. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Almost like there's this is what's going to happen. And I think that this is what's going to happen. I think there's an error for that in English. It doesn't read right. It feels a little bit too insistent, or a little too like telling you what to do.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
Okay, so let's take a look at some of these individual pieces. They're not numbered, so I'm just gonna pick one. I'm gonna pick this one here, Kiss of the Sun. Let's see how this one feels. Name of the photo, Kiss of Sun. Before taking a photo, my eyes always look for the best light. No matter how remarkable my subject may be, I could never do it without the help of light. In this photo, you see peppers on strings to dry and a little girl checking them. The light was kissing the little girl's hair and happy face. It was very enjoyable to photograph this moment. So, things I would probably change here is this. It was very enjoyable. I would cut that out, kind of like what Lauren had said in a couple of the previous ones. We don't really. I don't think it helps to insert yourself into the narrative. In some ways, we already know you were there, so it's probably better to kind of pull back on that, get that out of there. Describing what you're seeing is enough. I don't think you need to talk about that you enjoyed it. I don't think that adds to the story at all.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think that if we just knew the sentiment behind this with the young girl and the light, I think that would be absolutely enough.
Yeah. I'm gonna look at a couple of the other ones and see what we see here.
I really love Princess of Okra.
Let's take a look at it. Oh yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting. This looks a little bit like the tobacco ones, right?
It does. It really reminded me of that. I think here I would just tweak this description a little bit to where you kind of take yourself out of the narrative. I would maybe start with Okra, which talking about the unique smile on this little girl's face. I don't think you need to say it makes the photo valuable. I think you could truly just elaborate on her smile and her happiness and why you call her the Princess of Okra, and then move into that description of, okay, what makes okra so special. Like okra, which is one of the most grown products in the region, is dried by stringing. For the people of the region, it is both a winter food and a product with financial returns. I think just with those really minor edits, that this would be a really compelling description.
Also, look at this all zoomed in. Wow, right?
Yes, absolutely beautiful.
Great work. Yeah. So, okay. So, let's just take this as if you're listening to this, I'm gonna put it in the MetaJungle. I'm gonna talk about it in the MetaJungle Discord that we had a lot of. I would say we had almost completely non-Western North American artists in this. We had all. There were no Western artists in this entire session. And the thing that we've seen very consistently is almost every one of these could benefit from a little bit of proofing from somebody who's a native English speaker. And a lot of these are really good. So please don't, if you're listening, don't be thinking, gosh, Dan, why are you so hard on me? I think that I run all of mine by friends. And I'm a native English speaker, but I run all of my stuff by by friends and other fellow artists. And so I think it will be a real benefit for almost anybody that is not a native English speaker to make sure that you have somebody look at this stuff. Find some friends, people who've collected from you, people you've collected from, people in the MetaJungle community, and let's start taking advantage here of the community and start asking for help for these things, because I think every one of these collections would benefit from a little bit of proofreading and a little bit of just kind of grammatical checks. Let's make sure that we got this right. If you're gonna go to the trouble to mint this work, let's make sure we get this stuff right. Let's make sure that if there's going to be a native language for NFTs, which there is, whether we want it to be or not, let's just make sure. Let's make sure that we've done everything we can to have every advantage.
I totally agree, and I'm really happy to serve as a resource for that as well. And I'm so sorry, but I'm actually gonna have to drop out because it's almost 10 p.m. here, and
That's okay. We this is our last one, so we're actually done.
yeah, but
Oh.
thank you so much just for having me co-host this. It's been truly wonderful, and I look forward to doing this more. I think it was super beneficial, and I hope that we can just continue to offer this to the community so that we can just better ourselves and see more sales.
Yeah. Oh, I had to show this off as well. This is the one I own from Niatsi.
Truly beautiful. All right, y'all. Well, I do have to run.
Take care, Lauren.
Thank you for everything.
Well, I'm gonna with that. Let's call this thing off so you East Coasters can get to bed, because it's not that late here, but it is over there.